Numbers chapter 12, Miriam and Aaron are about to overstep their bounds. Verse 1, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. Comment, Miriam and Aaron are Moses' brother and sister. They're criticizing Moses for marrying a Cushite woman. Cush is in Africa south of Egypt, so the wife is not a native Israelite. She probably had dark skin. Verse 2, they said, has Yahweh indeed spoken only with Moses? Hasn't he spoken also with us? And Yahweh heard it. Comment, sometimes we don't respect our family members as we ought. Jesus said, quote, a prophet is not without honor, except in his own country and his own house. Matthew 13:57. Somehow they got the idea that Moses is elevating himself. In reality, we've seen all along how Moses doesn't even want the job. Yahweh thrust it on him. Verse 3, now the man Moses was very humble, more than all the men who were on the surface of the earth. Comment, just how wrong are Miriam and Aaron? They're accusing the most humble man on earth of thinking too much of himself. Jesus was an example of humility. He said, quote, learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. Matthew 11:29. Isaiah 57:7, quote, for thus says the high and lofty one who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, with him also who is of a contrite and humble spirit, end quote. The high and lofty one dwells with the meek and lowly. Verse 4, Yahweh spoke suddenly to Moses, to Aaron, and to Miriam. You three come out to the tent of meeting. The three of them came out. Yahweh came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the door of the tent and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forward. He said, now hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, Yahweh, will make myself known to him in a vision. I will speak with him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so. He is faithful in all my house. With him I will speak mouth to mouth, even plainly and not in riddles, and he shall see Yahweh's form. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant, against Moses? Comment, Exodus 15:20 calls Miriam, quote, Miriam the prophetess, end quote. She sang a few inspired words of song after Yahweh closed the Red Sea. And Aaron's a prophet too. 13 times we read the phrase, quote, Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, end quote. But Yahweh says, with Moses, I don't speak to him in dreams or riddles like a normal prophet. I speak to him, quote, mouth to mouth, even plainly, and not in riddles, and he shall see Yahweh's form, end quote. Then there's the chilling line, quote, why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant, end quote. Before we move on, we should make note of the fact that Yahweh habitually speaks to his prophets in riddles, in other words, in words that are unclear. They're unclear on purpose. The information is incomplete, or there's symbolism, figures of speech, parables, metaphors, and the like. They're riddles, in other words. As Yahweh says here, this is his normal and usual way of communicating with the prophets. Jesus habitually spoke in statements that were difficult to interpret. When he finally spoke to his disciples plainly on one occasion, they were surprised at him. They said, quote, behold, now you are speaking plainly and using no figures of speech. John 16:29. So we should be very humble and not be so sure of ourselves if we're tempted to make strong assertions about prophecies that Yahweh intends to be unclear. Mary did it right. The angel Gabriel brought her some words about Jesus before she got pregnant with him. And during the pregnancy, her cousin Elizabeth prophesied to her some more about the baby. Then she prophesied to herself in a passage of Luke called the Magnificat. When the baby was born, some shepherds prophesied to her about the things they had heard from the angel in the field. But with all this, Mary didn't make any bold statements or predictions. She, quote, treasured all these things, pondering them in her heart, end quote. So I think that's what we should do with prophecy in general. Treasure it, ponder it, and wait to see exactly what the Lord will do with it. But Moses was an extremely exceptional case. Yahweh spoke to him plainly, no riddles. Verse 9, Yahweh's anger burned against them, and he departed. The cloud departed from over the tent, and behold, Miriam was leprous, as white as snow. Aaron looked at Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. Aaron said to Moses, O my Lord, please don't count this sin against us, in which we have done foolishly, and in which we have sinned. Comment, Aaron has changed his tune. He called Moses my Lord, and he's begging Moses for forgiveness. He goes on, verse 12, Let her not, I pray, be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. Comment, that was a very graphic statement by Aaron. He's saying the leprosy has eaten away a large part of Miriam's flesh. It's so severe. Verse 13, Moses cried to Yahweh, saying, Heal her, God, I beg you. Yahweh said to Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, shouldn't she be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut up outside of the camp 7 days, and after that she shall be brought in again. Comment, Moses prayed, and Yahweh will heal her, but for punishment she'll have to stay outside the camp 7 days. Yahweh is embarrassing her on purpose. 1 Peter 5:5, quote, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble, end quote. Verse 15, Miriam was shut up outside of the camp 7 days, and the people didn't travel until Miriam was brought in again. Afterward, the people traveled from Hazeroth and encamped in the wilderness of Paran. Comment, Israel moved again to some undisclosed location in the wilderness of Paran. That's the chapter. Stay humble. See you next time for Numbers 13 at landofhavilah.net. Numbers 13.